thanks for joining us at yet another one of Warren and Will's Wild Wine Reviews. I am Warren. I've got 2,000 reviews at Vivino.
I'm Will. I've got somewhere around 500, 600. I still need to check on that number at some point. And I'm a certified sommelier through the Court of Master Sommeliers.
Wonderful. All right, so what we have tonight is Long Shadow's Feather Cabernet Sauvignon 2017. So I'll give you some information and then we'll start drinking this bad boy. Vivino gives it 4.3 stars with 218 ratings. The average price is $63.49. The only one that I could find on Vivino right now is going for $162.99, but it's a Magnum.
Oh, okay.
So it's twice the size.
Yeah,
It's still more than twice as expensive,
Right.
but it's twice the size, which means that it's aging slower. So that's a good thing. These guys are based in Walla Walla, Washington, which really seems to be turning into a place to get yourself some great
Absolutely.
cabs. They have 4 vineyards, and I'm not sure they're all based in Walla Walla, Washington, but Long Shadows is.
Mm-hmm.
Alan Shoup had a vision to create a group of ultra-premium wines, each with an exceptional international winemaker. This particular one is done by Randy Dunn, who you'll probably remember from, we reviewed one of his Napa Cabs. The guy has his own vineyard in Howell Mountain. And, he also used to work as a winemaker at Caymus.
Really?
So, yeah.
Okay,
yeah, so that's
cool.
where he started, was with Caymus.
That's a pedigree.
Then he did his own, which was Howell Mountain. It's a wonderful wine, but I like this one a lot.
Yeah.
And this one was aged for 22 months in 80% new French oak.
Alrighty.
So that's what I've got there. I couldn't find any information on the actual vineyard.
Right. It might be a blend of. It says Columbia Valley on the label, which tells me it's not a single vineyard.
Right.
Probably.
I don't think it's single vineyard.
Right.
But it's pretty fantastic.
Which can be nice for a winemaker because if single vineyards are cool, but if you've got a bunch of really good fruit one year and you're like, well, I kind of want to mix these together and see what happens, to have that flexibility is nice. It doesn't have the same pedigree on the label, but
Lots of peat on the nose.
Yep, definitely a smokier wine.
Very smoky.
Good swirl. Oh yeah, wow.
And that is the silky as a mouthfeel will get.
This is actually reminding me of the in terms of the overall fruit notes, not in terms of the intensity, reminding me of the Doubleback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely some characteristics from being grown in the same place and having people who know what they're doing making the wine that you get. But this is super silky mouthfeel. I mean, super silky.
I'm
it's
just
like
in love with the aroma.
silk.
I was
a little eucalyptus.
Yeah, definitely some minty mentholated.
Flip art.
Oh right, yeah. Keep ourselves honest. Yeah, no, a lot going on those. I'm also picking up that kind of blackberry pie kind of aroma that the Doubleback had.
And the tannins are chalky and very much there at the very end.
Yeah, no, now the palate, it differs from the Doubleback. In the Doubleback, I remember drinking it, that the mouthfeel was incredibly rich and silky in a kind of deceptive way because the nose was so intense.
Yeah.
This has much more of what I would consider to be in line with the aroma that I'm getting. Those chalky young tannins, I mean, this is only 5 years old, and it spent close to 2 years in French oak. I mean, this is going to be a tannic powerhouse.
Now, what time is it?
That's a good question.
Because my Fitbit
8:24.
So this has been decanting for 2.5 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this has been in the decanter for 2.5 hours.
Which, by the way, if you're doing a wine that's been kept for 2 years in French oak, and
that's
only
a good idea.
It's a very good idea, absolutely. No, it's always a shame when you open a bottle like this, and you either haven't decanted it for very long, or in some cases, people will open it, let it breathe for that long. But if you let it breathe, only that little bit at the top is
getting much out of that.
And so by the time you get to the last glass, you're really starting to enjoy it, but it's gone. It's a very frustrating experience. So decanting can really
decanting makes you happy with the first glass, because this would have been very tight when if it was poured straight out of the bottle. I think
absolutely
it would have been hard to get everything we're getting now from it. This is a marvelous bottle of wine. For a $60 bottle of wine. It's fantastic.
The one thing that
Randy Dunn, you nailed it.
He really did. The one thing I'll say is living alone. If I ever commit, and when I say commit to drinking a whole bottle of wine, I mean over the space of a long period of time between 6 and 11 o'clock at night. The nice thing is that without decanting, I can actually see the full evolution.
Yep.
And what I'll usually do is I'll have the first glass or a very small amount and be like, okay, you know what I'm going to do is I'm either going to decant this or I'm just going to like let it sit with some nice headspace and come back in an hour or two and then finish the rest of
I
it.
sometimes drink a bottle when I watch football, and so it'd be like a glass, a 4-ounce glass per quarter.
Right.
You know, so that'll get me through a game and a half.
Well, the nice thing is that, you know, when you're watching a football game, you're not necessarily completely focused on the wine, so 4 ounces might be something that you let sit in the glass for longer than a person in a
normally
bar
I
would.
would do 6 ounces.
Oh, yeah,
But
absolutely.
with football, I'm watching the game a lot more, and I really like to sip.
Yep.
You know, it's like doing whiskey. I don't want to knock it back fast. I want to
Exactly.
take my time.
Yeah, no, I have a dictum that any whiskey, well, how did I put it? I said, any whiskey that I have to shoot, I don't want to drink, and any whiskey I want to drink, I'm not going to shoot.
Yeah.
It's a waste.
Yeah.
I'm a journey person, not a destination
I don't
person.
drink to get wasted, so you know you don't want to drink it fast.
If I get wasted, I consider myself to have essentially failed at some point in the evening, because it goes against what I'm trying to do, which is enjoy myself.
It's a little bit of tartness creeping in, which wasn't there on the first sip.
High acidity. I
That's
mean, the thing
interesting.
is, this is a Columbia Valley cab.
Yep.
That distance north, and that cooler climate that they have on the other side of the mountains. I mean, the acidity shoots up. You can put Napa and Columbia Valley next to each other, and setting aside any of the flavor aromatic differences, the acidity is going to be noticeably higher more often than not. In Washington, for sure. That's one of the reasons I like that Bordeaux blend from Washington so much, is that they were really nailing the Bordeaux style, not just in terms of the great blend, but in terms of the overall structure.
Which one was that?
There was the Calumet?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean
Forgotten they were from Washington.
Yeah, no, the thing about Bordeaux is that I mean, even though they're further south and it's a warmer climate than say the Loire Valley or Burgundy, it's still not the Mediterranean. It's on the Atlantic,
Right.
and it's got that it's I think it's a maritime. It's a warm maritime, but it's a maritime climate. It's not quite New Zealand level of maritime where they can't do cab as reliably.
Yeah.
But it's still a maritime climate. Washington isn't maritime by virtue of being next to the ocean, but it's maritime by virtue of its cooler nature overall.
I love Washington. I remember being in Seattle in May, and it was just gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
Like, man, if it was like this year round, I'd live here.
Yep.
And my friend who I was visiting was like, dude, if it was like this year round, everybody would live here.
Yep.
Because he was like, make sure you bring your rain gear. And I'm like, my what? You know, your rain gear.
Yep.
And I'm like, rain gear. Yeah, you know, your pants, the waterproof pants. I'm like, dude, only people who live in rainforests own that stuff.
Which is funny because Virginia, while not as bad as out there, I mean, Virginia has more rain than you know. You get further inland, and they don't get the kind of rain that we do. You know, being on the eastern seaboard, you know, anything that breaks up over the ocean is gonna come inland, but the mountains block it. But even coming from Virginia, which is a tropical rainforest compared to a lot of places, it's nothing like Washington or Oregon.
I remember I was there another time visiting the same friend, and there was like a break in the clouds. It rained every day that we were there, and there was a break in the clouds, and a beam of light shone through.
Yeah.
And everybody in town, it was actually in Ilwaco, Washington at that point, just past Olympia, and everybody in town was like, "Did you see the sun? Wasn't it glorious?"
Our 15 minutes of
And,
sun.
and
or whatever.
Ange and I had come from Virginia. We're looking at each other going, that was not glorious, people. That was not glorious. That was one little beam of dejected sunlight.
Do you remember in October 2015 when your pond overflowed?
Yes.
We got like rain for a solid, I want to say like 10 days.
We had a 10,000 year flood.
Yeah, it was massive.
There was a waterfall from the parking lot at Food Line because it's up above and the water was just pouring off of it. And I don't know how much water poured out of the pond. It was just going. But we, you know, fortunately for us, I think, have we talked about this?
I don't think
we
so.
might have. But at any rate, my buddy Matt Boucher put the pond in, and he used lasers and he shot it up and got it right to where he wanted. And he's like, I hate to do this to you, Warren. It's gonna add $1,000 to the cost of the pond, but I gotta put a spillway in. It just wouldn't be right if I didn't. You're never gonna need it. You're always gonna feel like, you know, he's just trying to get money out of me. But we really gotta have it. I was like, no, man, put it in. Well, that saved the pond.
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
sent him a video of it. He's like, "Oh my God! Not only did I never think any water was going over it, I couldn't imagine that much." Because
Right.
I'm showing him this rapid of water
Oh,
leaving
absolutely.
the pond. I wonder how many fish I lost. Well, I certainly got plenty of them. So.
Well, and the thing is that that was just the year before, right? He installed it like
it was the next year, yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
It was like
I was a
literally.
little worried about it because this is a powered. There's power in this gazebo, obviously,
Mhm.
and this gazebo's 30 feet out over the water.
Yeah.
Well, the water came up to the gazebo.
Yeah.
There's power. People get electrocuted in ponds with powered gazebos
Oh, yeah.
all the time when the water rises
Yep.
to that level. Now, we built this thing high enough that it should never have happened,
Right.
based on what we were told. You know, a 10,000-year flood, but we had one our first year.
Yep, we
And
sure
so
did.
I was a little worried, like somehow one of our kayaks got loose and it's floating around and it's about to go down, and I was like, I'll never see that thing
Yeah.
again, because this was a real studly little, it looked like a real river raging through where
Oh,
I
yeah.
normally have this like a foot across,
Mhm.
6 inches, 7 inches deep
Yeah.
spillway coming out where the water's always coming out of the pond, because
Yeah.
we have water coming in, so water has to go out. But it's usually not that much. And I was like, wow, that could end up, I don't know, in New Orleans. It could go down to the New River and just keep on the Little River, or
Well,
the New
the thing
River,
is with-
and just keep going.
The fallacy of the small numbers is that it's a 10,000 year flood, but we could potentially have two of them within our lifetime. If we happen to just roll
Well,
ones.
Well, here's the other thing with global.
Oh yeah.
With the climate change,
Yeah.
we're getting these things everywhere. Now we can
Mhm.
argue about why or what.
They're
but
happening.
We really are having
Yeah.
these kind of heat waves, floods,
Yes.
fires that we haven't seen in 10,000 years. We're having them.
Well, and also, I mean, they happen, but they didn't happen with this level of frequency.
Right.
Year after year.
Alarming
after year.
regularity.
Alarming regularity over wide swaths of area that they didn't used to happen in. So yeah, like you said, we can argue about the genesis of it, but the truth is, you can just look at heck, when I was a kid, the ice storm that hit all the way from Birmingham to Maine.
Yeah.
The Alabama all the way up the eastern seaboard. It's the first time Alabama had ever had to deal with
Yeah.
heavy snow.
I think it was Mississippi where they have a snowplow,
Mhm.
but nobody knew where it was. The one for the whole
The one-
state.
yep.
It was parked somewhere, but nobody remembered who'd used it last.
I mean, to be fair, if you have one in the entire state, it can be kind of easy to lose track of.
Yeah, especially since nobody's needed it in
Mhm.
15 years, And
Yep.
I'm not sure why they had it to begin with, but now, of course, they need it because that happens.
Well,
much
that one
more often
10,000
now.
year blizzard.
I mean, just
Spot
look at
it.
what happened with Texas
Mhm.
and the ice storm.
And the ice storms,
It
yep.
exposed that don't really have first world
The
infrastructure.
nasty thing about ice storms, and this is what I hate about them, is that snowstorms happen when you have below zero temperatures. Ice storms happen when your temperatures are hovering right around 32, 33. It doesn't take a whole lot to get to that level.
Right, those happen regularly.
But when you drop just a few degrees lower, you don't have to worry about ice because I mean it's below freezing, but you're not hovering at that level where ambient
Yeah.
water in the air is turning into ice on trees, and especially in areas where you have lots of pine trees knocking them down on the power lines.
My place, yeah.
No, and that's the thing is that once you have an ice storm, the power goes out and the crews go out and fix it, and then 24 hours later, more pine trees fall
And
down.
more.
Mm-hmm.
I really wish they just bury all the lines, but they want the consumers to pay for that, not themselves.
Right.
So that's never going to happen, unfortunately, unless
I
you
mean,
pay
yeah,
them
I was
to
gonna
put
say
it
it's not.
underneath the
It's
ground.
not. It's. I assume it's not that big of a monetary outlay.
It really isn't, but American corporations
Yep.
don't do anything that isn't profit driven.
Right. Wonder. Yeah, I was gonna say, how far down do they bury them? Like, what's the depth of the line?
That is not my expertise.
Yeah,
man. I
mine
couldn't
either.
tell you. I just know that floods washing them out does happen, but it happens less often than ice storms.
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot less often.
The thing that my dad has to deal with in Buckingham is CenturyLink, the phone company. Their boxes are essentially like open to the elements, so every time it rains, not every
Yeah.
time, but a lot of
Wow.
times when it rains, it knocks his phone out.
Yeah. We had somebody hit our internet box again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This
it
year?
happened- yeah, last week.
Oh my gosh.
Well, they flattened the box, but the guy came and said there was nothing wrong with the fiber, and he just put a new box there.
That's awesome.
The last time that was the same thing. They just
Yeah.
put up a new box. They flattened it. They pulled the box out. They looked at the wires. Everything was cool.
Well, the main thing about fiber is it's different because it's not. I mean, there's no. It's literally just a big bundle of cables
Yeah.
and they're wrapped up. So you would actually probably have to take
break
like
one or cut it.
yeah,
somehow.
you'd have to take a blade and like drive drive it into them, just flattening the box. What is in the box?
Basically fiber cables.
Okay.
There didn't seem to be anything there.
Okay, so just
I
knocked
didn't
them around
spend a
and
lot
didn't
of time.
damage them.
Yeah, they knocked them around. They flattened the metal. They had put a new box in, and it was fine. It's the third or fourth time somebody's hit my box.
I'll tell you what, though.
Because of where I live.
If you ever want to
They don't stop. Not ever.
You can hit that box with a truck and not damage the fiber optic cable. You take one little needle and drive it into one of those coils, they're going to have to come and replace it.
Yeah, well, fortunately, nobody does that.
Right. No.
So yeah, it's always fun. People waste we gave up on mail here partially because of that. The other part is they want it on the other side of the street, and I live on a double blind S curve where people are driving 70 miles an hour, which is why they keep wiping out mailboxes, and because you just can't do that safely. And so I can't cross the street safely because I can't see far enough in either direction.
And there's a steep hill on the other side.
70, I'm done. So, we just refuse. So our mail all goes to the post office. And I'm starting to run into all this. We don't mail the post office box. I'm like, it's the 21st century. They really check your ID now at post offices. It's actually safer because, out here we've got porch pirates and, and guys who would drive by and pull anything that's hanging from your mailbox just gone. I mean, I remember once back when I had the magazines and I was mailed virtually every book that was published in science fiction because I had a trade journal and we reviewed them all. And I remember walking out and I saw a big bag of books hanging from my mailbox. But before I could get to it, a car came by and snagged it. It was right before Christmas time. I watched them go, and they had their license plate covered. This was in Indian Valley.
Oh my
god! And they were just gone. I mean, I know all they got was a bunch of science fiction books.
Right.
But I was just
still.
Still.
That's just oh my gosh. And because they had their license plate covered, they went out intending to do stuff like that. They were on a mission. Oh my gosh.
Because they just hang them, so they can just drive by and snag them. They barely needed to slow down to get it.
So I had a funny experience back at the beginning of COVID. It was in April. I know it was in April because it was my birthday. So I went out on the porch, and I found this package. And the package itself didn't bother me, but it had a very, very old phone number on it. And that weirded me out because I was just like, I hadn't ordered anything. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it'd be one thing, it'd be like...
So old phone number as in yours?
Yeah, no, it was a recognizable phone number, but one that I hadn't had in close to a decade. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at this going, okay, this is weird. It came to me, and that phone number is one I used to have, and I didn't order anything. So I opened it, and it was some CDs. And I was just like, this is so strange. And so my next door neighbor came over, and he was like, hey, have you gotten any
CDs?
And I said, actually, I did. It's funny that you asked. Well, no. So I called my dad to tell him the story. He said, those are your birthday present. I mailed them to you. I didn't want to tell you about it. They were a surprise. So I went over to my neighbor's house, and I was like, hey, I think those are actually mine. And he's like, yeah, those weren't the ones I ordered. And he was kind of perturbed, and I thought that he was perturbed because he was embarrassed, and I assured him everything was fine, and I hoped I hadn't bothered him, and he told me no, of course not. Found out later.
He liked them.
No. When you buy weed, they ship it to you in DVDs and CD cases. That's how they
probably don't have to anymore. It's legal in Virginia now.
Well, yeah, but in 2020 it wasn't.
Right.
But a couple of friends of mine who are growers were like, he was ordering seeds. I was like, oh man, and I put him on the spot. So the next time he came over, not long after. I can't remember what he was asking me about, but I was just like, hey man, any DVDs come across my porch for you, I'll be sure to come. And he's like, and I just saw him relax, and he was like, thank you, I really appreciate it. I was like, I got you, man.
This is just really soft.
Yeah, and it's hard for us to describe the evolution because it's basically as evolved as he and I want it right now.
Right.
The only thing that I would say is that I think it's a little less smoky.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Somewhat. I mean, it's still there.
The peat's there, but it's not the dominant.
It's not it's not hitting you in the face. It's
pie crust is coming up.
Absolutely,
over that.
definitely.
Which I couldn't smell pie crust before. Yeah, I got cedar.
Cedar,
I got that right out of the gate. And more so now. Now that
I was going to say the cedar's become more integrated.
The cedar is more up front.
Yep.
The pie crust is much more pronounced.
Warren and I used to talk about these flavors at parties, and people would think that we were joking, or I think sometimes they thought that we were making
just being
fun.
Pretentious.
Or no, that we were making fun of pretentious people.
Oh, okay.
Because it's fun to do that sometimes. Be like, I get essence of jasmine and patchouli.
Unicorn.
Yeah, with a slight underpinning
cockatrice.
with a slight underpinning of persiflage. And so people thought that we were doing that, and we're like, no, we're actually telling each other what we
White
get.
privilege
Yeah.
and despair.
That's the kind of thing that we'd be doing if we were making fun.
We have certainly done
If
that.
you hear us mentioning things that actually have flavors and aromas, we're not joking.
I remember I was at some restaurant and they had faux gras and something else on the menu, and I was like, faux gras and this other thing, you know, steeped in sadness.
Yeah.
And
Served on a bed of lies.
And stewed in despair.
Yeah. No, I remember when we introduced.
I did not order the faux gras, by the way.
I remember when we introduced Becca to
I wish I could remember
wine
who
tasting.
Becca was.
Becca, Arthur's wife.
Oh yes, Rebecca. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I've
Sorry,
never called her Becca.
I call her Becca because that's what Arthur
okay.
calls her.
Yeah, Rebecca. She's a gym rat
Yes.
like us, so we see her all the time.
Yeah,
Angela and I, my wife and I, are both gym rats.
I actually
We
did
spend a
call
lot of
her
time at the
Rebecca
gym.
more, but Arthur and I hang out so much now. I call her Becca just
'Cause he
because
calls her
that's
that.
what he
Okay.
calls her. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've always called her Rebecca.
That's
so,
true, yeah, you
so
and I
when you're
don't know
saying
what-
Becca, I'm like, I have
we
no
don't-
idea who Becca is. Okay,
Yeah,
but
you're
I do
thinking
know who.
BECCA,
But I do know
not
Rebecca. Yes, 'cause-
BEKAH,
yeah,
yeah.
she's a marathon
Yep.
runner, and she actually comes here because she also does triathlons. And
Yeah,
she
yeah.
uses the pond to
Oh,
train.
no kidding. Okay, I didn't know that.
So she'll drop me a line. Can I use your pond on Wednesday? And I'm like,
Yeah,
come
come
on.
on
I
over.
don't have any plans for the pond. I'm not gonna.
There's no wild parties going on as far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
But
And I usually know.
we were having a it might have been a cab. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it had that pie crust.
Yep.
And she was like, "What are you guys talking about when you say pie crust?" And I'm like, "Well, here, have a glass." And she's like, "Okay, so like, how do I know what I'm looking for?"
Think pie crust.
Yeah, and we're like, "Well, think about graham crackers." She's like, "Oh," and like you could see like her get it.
Yep.
She's like, "Okay," and it was really cool watching that sort of moment of recognition, because there's been times when I've tried to explain that to people and they're like, "I'm still not getting it," and then
Yep.
like I watched her go, "Okay, I see now," like the graham cracker thing, and then but it's not just graham cracker; it's pressed together with sugar and
Well, it's
yeah.
it's the thing. I mean, it tastes like blackberry
Mhm.
pie.
Yeah, it tastes like blackberry
to
with
some
the pie
extent.
crust.
Not
Yeah,
quite as sweet,
Mm-mm.
but that's the flavor it evokes.
And that's the thing, is that this is the discussion my dad and I always have, where he will call a wine sweet, and I'm like, it's not sweet. It just has
fruity.
it's very fruity.
There's lots of fruit in it.
There is you are
Fruit
reverse
forward.
engine. Your brain is reverse engineering sweetness,
Yep.
but that's not there.
Yeah,
And
like this, somebody who doesn't know that will think this is sweet because it's very fruit forward,
Mhm.
but it's not sweet. It's fruit forward. Man, my face is so itchy from all my hair in my face. It gets cut tomorrow. I'm shaving my damn head. Okay, I'm not.
You're not
my
shaving your damn
I'm-
head.
You know, we're
For
trimming
you.
it here. We'll trim it here.
for you, you're shaving your damn
Yeah,
head.
Right.
Um,
And then I'm dyeing my hair because it'd be silly to dye all this hair. Some of it's going away. Why bother dyeing the part that's gone? So I don't know what color I'm going to go with, but I don't like this blonde thing I got going on from too much time at the beach.
they don't have more fun, huh?
Well, they might, but I don't.
That ain't your thing.
Yeah, I'm not saying I don't have more fun. I'm just saying I prefer darker hair.
Yeah, no, the purple suits you.
Yeah, and I haven't been purple in a while because the purples haven't been working.
You know what's really funny though is that even though your hair is this color now, if I mention you around town to people and they're not placing you, and I'm like the '80s hair metal, and they're like, "Oh, with the purple hair." So you didn't even have to have purple hair for people to think that you have purple hair. That's just how they think
I'm
of
always
you.
surprised by people's reaction to me because, you know, like I was once in Food Lion and there's just this, I don't know, 23, 24-year-old woman. She had really cool boots on.
Mhm.
So I really like your boots. And she just turned around and she's like, I've been wanting to tell you forever how much I love your style. It's just so much cooler. And I'm like, okay, pretty girl, I had no idea you even knew who I was.
But here's the thing: is that the we live in a culture where people often feel afraid to give each other compliments.
Yeah.
It's for a variety of reasons. It's because you don't. First of all, you don't want to seem untoward.
Well, and to which I never tell somebody they're pretty.
Right.
I never say, why don't you smile, or you have such a pretty smile. I
Exactly.
actually compliment them on things that they're in control of.
Right,
Love
they're
your
wearing.
hair color. Those boots are awesome.
Your piercings,
Because-
your tattoos.
Right, these are decisions people made.
Exactly.
And that they take credit for. It's really nobody's, fault.
I've been growing these cheekbones for years. I'm really glad you like them.
Mom and Dad were beautiful. I got
Yeah.
lucky. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, and that's
But
I
I
understand
think the
why
other thing
people-
is that by and large, you get out of high school, and like, I was a pretty genuine person in middle school and high school, and it never got me anything but grief. And so by the time that I was getting out of college, I was just kind of like, I wasn't not genuine, but I was like, I'm going to keep more things to myself. And then I realized, by the time you reach your like late 20s, early 30s, even the kids who were, not all of them, but a lot of the kids who were kind of mean in high school were going, I wish I'd been nicer.
Everybody grows up.
I wish I'd been nicer. I wish I'd been more genuine. I wish I'd responded better to people giving me compliments.
On Facebook, all the guys that I thought of as bullies,
yeah,
they all seem like
yeah,
okay guys.
Yeah.
They're not being jerks. They're not the word that I would normally use, but
Right.
we're trying to keep this PG-13. They're not those things, And some of them are just like, oh, dude, I'm sorry about, and I'm like,
Yeah. They don't even have to apologize to me.
Right,
It's
from
just,
my point of view, is I don't hold anything against anybody. We were
No.
kids and we were stupid.
yeah,
And that's the law. When you're a kid, you're stupid.
Well, and also, I didn't bully anyone when I was in middle school or high school, but I wasn't always the easiest to get along with.
No,
I did
wish-
things that
well, I
were
look back.
jerky or probably annoying.
And as you can attest, I try to be the nicest guy in the room
Yeah.
everywhere I go, anywhere I go. But I wasn't always that guy.
Right.
Now, God, the years I was in a rock and roll band, I was a straight up jerk. I was an egotistical.
But you're also 19.
No.
Well,
I was
19
21 to
Yeah.
to 27 were the years that I was really active.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you're that age, one, you're not very wise.
Nope.
And two, when you've got people telling you every night you're a god, after a while you're like, I'm a god.
You start to believe it.
And that's what it's like being in a rock and roll band. So that's the only period I really regret. Although, I wish I could go back and be nicer in grade school. High school and junior high school. I was kind of a badass, and I would like to go back and say that guy's off limits.
Right.
You give him a hard time, I'm going to kick your butt.
Right.
And then people would have left because I hadn't even
Right.
realized. Like my next door neighbor is like, oh no, high school is great for me. I was like, why? He's like, because now my brother is 6'3" and weighs
Yeah.
like 280 now. He was not heavier than me then, but he was as big as I am, and he was a little bigger. And we were both like very clear. Kevin's our buddy.
Yeah.
You give Kevin a hard time, we're going to light you up.
Oh, yeah.
And Kevin's like, I just walked through high school because everybody knew Warren and Dan will kill you if you pull out their him. And I wish I'd done that for more people.
There was a guy I went to high school with. His name was JD, and I was very worried when I was in 7th grade. I was worried that JD would bully me because I didn't really understand JD. And what I found out about JD was JD really appreciated genuineness, straightforwardness, and honesty. And what I didn't know is that in 8th grade, I cemented myself in JD's good graces because I essentially went Martin Luther, and I wrote this open letter to the school about how
Reformation.
this kid got bullied, and I went to the middle school director, and she didn't do anything, and I got mad about it.
Yeah.
And without my parents knowing, I went and typed up on Microsoft Word this open letter to the school, like, we're better than this. I'm really don't like the response I've gotten. And I taped it to all the doors.
You had Microsoft Word
Yep.
in middle school.
Yep.
Dude, I didn't have a word processor till my first year in college.
If it had been the 70s, I would have typed it up and mimeographed it. But anyway, the middle school director was furious with me. And JD came up, and this guy was like James Dean Rebel without a cause. And he came up to me and
James Dean.
and he said, I am proud of you. You did the right thing.
Oh, that's cool.
And he ran to my mom later. My mom said, my son gives me such conflicting reports about you. From some reports, you're a leather jacket-toting, question authority, bumper sticker, rebel. But other times he talks about just how grateful he is that you're here. And he's like, your son is a great person, and I'm glad he's here at Tandem.
Cool.
He keeps us honest. But he did the same thing. He went to a guy who was bullying me, and he was like, hey, luckily this guy was his friend. He's like, hey, you and I are friends. Lil and I are friends.
Leave him alone.
Just back off. And it wasn't like, I'm going to hurt you. It was like, because you like me.
I remember when I started showing up at a couple of places where I was playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I was 18 or 19. When I first walked in, these kids were freaking terrified. And it's like, no, guys, we're good. Let's just play. I
was going to say, you look like a natural Dungeons and Dragons player to me.
Absolutely, but they
I
were
guess back
terrified
then,
because
back
of who
then.
I was.
Right.
They knew me, and they were just like, well, what if we piss Warren off? He'll kill it. And of course, the thing that was funny is I remember I brought another one of my buddies who was also kind of like, on the edge like I was, and he loved it too.
Right.
And so we're playing with these guys. Remember, we took one of them, we're like, hey, man, we're going out after this. You want to come? And he's like, sure. And we went somewhere somewhere, and he's like, I gotta leave. And I'm like, why do you have to leave? He's like, that guy will kill me. I'm like, that dude will never talk to you when Chuck and I are here.
Right.
Because there's no chance that dude's giving any of our friends a hard time.
Right.
He's a wuss. He's like, he's not a wuss. I'm like, oh, dude, he's a wuss. Trust
Around us,
me on
he's a
this.
wuss.
Yeah, because he came over and he started. I was like, dude, he's our friend. He was like, okay, good, we're good. And he walked off. He's like, he looks scared. I'm like, he was.
Well, the other
I
thing.
gotta edit this crap out.
No,
but-
no, 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 no. No, this is good. No.
I know you think all this stuff is cool. I don't. But
Well, okay. Here's the thing. I just wanted to say I have been to parties where I've walked in and just remind myself I'm not in high school anymore. I'm not
Right.
18. I'm 37. And I'm looking around and I'm like, you know what? These people look weird, but I've been to, I live in Floyd. Everybody looks weird in Floyd.
Mhm.
I'm going to give these guys 5 minutes, and within 5 minutes, I'm friends with 3 people.
Yeah.
And some of them are the most terrifying looking people there.
Well, Floyd's an interesting place because you have a lot of like face tattoos.
Yeah.
But by and large, everybody's pretty laid back.
Big beards, big
yeah,
bulky
the big
guys.
beard thing's kind of weird still to me.
Well, here's the thing. I may have already told this story on camera, and I'm sorry if I did, and we can edit it out if I did. But one of the things I really like about Floyd is that the good old boy population is not a monolithic
No, it's
conservative entity. And there have been times at Floyd, at Dogtown, where there have been people who were giving me grief for one reason or another, usually actually not related to me dressing like a girl. And some big burly biker dude would come over to me and be like, was that guy giving you a hard time because you dressed like a girl? I said, no, not at all. He's like, okay, well, if he does, you just let me know.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so complicated.
We lived on Airport Road for a year. One of the best years of my life.
In
The
Blacksburg?
house was awesome. No, Airport Road in
Oh,
Reiner.
oh, yeah,
We had
yeah,
Floyd
yeah, I know
address.
exactly what you're talking about, yeah.
Because the Floyd people, the Floyd post office delivered on
Yeah,
And, there was this, like, just past our house, there was these 5 or 6 other houses, and I'm just looking at these people going, I bet we're not going to get along. And then all their political signs went up, and I'm like, what's this
Yeah.
liberal little group of hippies? They didn't look, I was just shocked.
Yeah.
So, that was cool. You cannot make assumptions based on
can't.
where people live. You got to actually talk to them and listen to them. What was funny in that neighborhood is they all had dogs. And they had a couple of them, one of them had a dog that just barked. And
Yeah.
barked. And it just drove me nuts. So what I did is I went and I bought a big, big box of milk bones.
Mhm.
And so there was this dog. He barked. It would just come to the edge of my driveway and bark at me for hours.
Right.
And I'd throw a milk bone to like within 5 feet of it and it would come in. I slowly got it to where I could actually pet this dog. I remember for whatever reason, Verizon delivered they put a note on our door that they had delivered our new Wi-Fi system to the next door neighbor. And I'm like, well, I got a porch. Why did you put it on the next door neighbor's porch and not my porch? And then why did you bother to do this?
Right.
If you were going to take the time to come to my porch and tell
Put
me
it on my
you
porch.
dropped it on his porch, why wouldn't you live? But the funny thing was I went to his house and I knocked on his door and he freaking went through the roof. His dog would go mental anytime anyone came to his
Right,
house.
but not you.
But not me, because I've been feeding that. We called that dog Milkbone. Turns out that dog's name was Annie. But, we call it Milkbone. Now, all these dogs were just like these aggressive, mean-ass dogs.
Yeah.
When we got there, within 3 months, within a month maybe, every time we walk down, we'd see these dogs about.
Yeah.
We're like, little tails just going
Yep.
mental. Here comes the guys with the milk bones.
Yep.
And so it got to be that everybody's dogs loved us.
Yep.
And that's what you do when you live in this kind of a place.
You catch more flies with honey than vinegar.
Carry milk bones, man. There's no dog alive that'll eat you if you
Yep.
can have a milk bone.
No, and the other thing is that
But it turned out they were all sweet dogs. They wanted to kill us to start with.
Right.
But once we were their friends, we enjoyed living there. It was a great year. I wish that the guy who owned the house at the time, he wouldn't sell it because we wanted to buy it. It was it was on 85 acres.
Oh wow.
And all the way down was the Little River. Was the Little River?
Little River, yeah.
So
yeah,
we
yeah.
had Little River frontage, but it was a million miles away from the house. But it was awesome.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
I'm quite happy with where I am now, but I really like that house.
No,
It was
I had a friend
wonderful
that lived
year.
out in that area. It's gorgeous, gorgeous area. I house sat for them a couple of times, and their house is out in the middle of there's parts of Airport Road that have some field. But this was back in the woods close to the
problem
terminus.
was the dirt road. Every time it rained, we couldn't leave the house.
Yep.
And
You
we had
will
a
have
bug.
that.
We had a new bug at the time. We didn't have our kid yet. Our daughter was born a year later when we moved, and then we had the bug even when she was born, and that became a problem. So we traded it in for an Outback.
It's like 2004.
Yeah, Tara was born in 2004. Yeah.
It's so crazy to me that our friendship began in 2013 when your daughter was 8 years old and riding on the front of your grocery cart.
Yes.
And now she's 17? 18.
18.
Yeah, so we have been friends for
a decade.
For a decade.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, by and large, I think if we took a picture of us then and us now,
We wouldn't look any
we
different.
wouldn't look that much different. But your
No.
daughter,
Yeah, she would look different. She
Yeah.
would look different. All right, we are just about finished.
We
here.
are.
Our time is up. Hey, folks, we are still looking for a name because if we don't come up with soon, his name is Spacey McSpace
Face.
So it's up to you. If you're like, cool, it's Spacey McSpace, then Spacey.
Or
McFace
if one of you is good at
Face
naming things.
is. I mean, we're not going to name him Bob or Bill, but come up with something where it's Spacey McSpaceface, folks.
We would accept Hal.
Don't suggest Hal.
Now that I've said that, you can't
Right.
do that.
Now,
but
now it's off limits, but yeah, we would have taken Hal for sure. All right, thank you very much for joining us on this wonderful Warren and Will's wine review. Definitely go out and get your hands on the Feather. If you can't get this year, get another year. It's fantastic.
Absolutely.
It's worth drinking. Randy Dunn, thank you for making a great wine.
Sláinte.
Cheers.